What's up, everybody? Lake Station Community Advocate back again with something kind of important because I had a community member ask me about this situation. Now, a little while ago, we had a little bit of a situation last year back in August, probably even before that, if I remember correctly. There was some canines being transported in a very not approved vehicle from Chicago O'Hare into supposedly Michigan. Now, if you don't know, that's quite a ways away. Anyway, it was hot as hell, and this is what happened. So, the owner came in to the local gas station here, checked on the animals where the dogs were literally dying. They were convulsing from heat stroke. Passerbys and people that were there at the gas station began to record. They called Lake Station Police Department, and they had Hobart Humane Society nearby to come help. However, when Lake Station Police showed up, they took very immediate, intimidating control of the situation at the scene. And kind of let me go through what I'm talking about. But this is on PETA's website because PETA actually got involved. Now, when it comes to the reason I have an issue, and I understand, I'm not trying to attack people, but when our community has been this intimidated and manipulated, and our community has been so much fear and anger has been thrusted up at our community members, and especially when people try to help, that this kind of thing goes wrong and they sweep it under the rug. And it's not just my word saying this is factual. This is what's going on. So as you see here, I've highlighted the Lake Station Police Department, which inexplicably blocked the dying dogs from receiving emergency care. I want you to think about that. These officers that are still in their positions inexplicably block the dying dogs from receiving any sort of veterinary care to save their life. I want you people to think about this. This is why I'm a community advocate, and this is why I'm a community educator. This type of stuff right here, and there are people within our community who praise their behaviors and who support who they are and what they do. This is sickening. Regarding an apparent conflict of interest surrounding Lake Station Police Department handling of the case. Why was that such a conflict of interest? Well, because even though the dogs essentially baked to death in the back of their truck, which it did that year, here's what happened. Not only was Lake Station deleting Facebook posts discussing anything on our local community pages that were discussing the death of these dogs, they were also limiting the users. Now, this is important, people, because when you're on a community page and you're limiting what people say and do, you are violating their First Amendment right of freedom of speech. And not only are you doing that, but you're also manipulating and controlling what information is out there and what is not. That is a form of political propaganda. However, this is what they continued. And as you see, they hit hundreds of comments referring the incident and critical of the department's handling of it. We immediately called out the police department. And of course, they had to get sent a cease and desist letter because they were literally stopping people's views and understanding of everything. And how do they do that? Well, the same people that run the social media pages are part of their crony group. They're in group. They're members. And this is the stuff I'm talking about, people. But they responded by silencing them and removing any sort of acknowledgement of any of the tragedy that ever happened. Why would they do that? Well, because our police chief here, Lake Station Police Department chief, who was not allegedly, for thwarting the Humane Society's attempt to help suffering dogs conduct an appropriate criminal investigation, he had an existing relationship with the owner of that man. And not only did they have a relationship with him, but they tried to quickly let him pull off like nothing ever happened. And yes, that's what got him caught up. But he already had an existing relationship, and reportedly they were hostile to local Humane Society veterinarians and workers when they came to help. They didn't want nobody involved. Now, this should be a pretty clear indicator of the manipulation of social media that's in our community. When it's their friends, it's their people, they're going to hide, they're going to lie, they're going to connive, they're going to manipulate the social media and everything they possibly can. And how do they do that? Well, they have their cronies and their friends doing that. Unfortunately, you don't have to worry about that with me, which is a beautiful thing because I allow that on the Lake Station Strong Towns Collective and the Strong Local Conversations page. I want to hear it all. Whether I agree with it or not, that's the whole point of community, is to hear it all. And as we see here again, they were blocking the efforts to assist. And we're also forced, these people that were from the Humane Society were forced to stand by while the dogs died. This is the kind of people we have running our community. And this is the kind of thing of why our community isn't thriving. We have people who are doing evil, bad things, and they're sweeping it under the rug like it's just a fly on their neck. Like it's no big deal. It is time to start holding these people accountable. Has everybody forgotten about these canine dogs? I sure didn't. And by the way, if you didn't know, the person who was bystanding, who videotaped this, who was thrown into their police cars and was threatened and intimidated by the police officers to delete their video, otherwise they were going to jail, that's a neighbor of mine. Yeah, they are the reason that the news channel showed up, was because of them. And it's a beautiful thing that they did. Otherwise, stuff like this would be swept under the rug, and it should not be. So I want to remind everybody why community advocacy and educating the community is so very important. It is because these dead canine dogs. Or how about the other things that go on, like when, there's things swept under the rug about somebody being hit and killed, or something comes up missing, or the things that are going on in our community. This is why it's so important to know who our leaders are, because this is frightening. First off, they're not dictators. They're not Hitlers. They're not Stalins. They're not Pol Pots. They're not Lenins. This is sickening. Dead canine dogs. Not only did he have a relationship with them, he tried to hide it. He was going to let him go. If you go in and you read this article, he was going to let him go like nothing ever happened. This is the kind of things, people in our community, we got to deal with. So trust me when I say we need to call this out, and we need to start voting new people in. People that we trust, people that are not worried about being held accountable, people that are okay with transparency, leaders that are okay with being honest and having some integrity, meaning doing what they're supposed to be doing, the great things when nobody's looking. These are the kind of community leaders we need. Otherwise, this is going to continue, and it will never stop. And if this continues, bad things can only come of it. I'm the Lake Station Community Advocate and Educator. Go check out Lake Station Community Strong Towns Collective and Lake Station Strong Local Conversation on Facebook. Be an eagle, don't be a crow. Challenge the status quo, because if you don't, you'll never know what we can achieve and, well, quite frankly, what we can change. Be an eagle, don't be a crow.